Coming to you live from sunny Arizona. The Steve Root Show is now live.
Okay, everyone, we're here on a podcast that where we'll be talking about things different than we normally do, because there's been a death of a friend of mine whom I've known for over 25 years. His name was Drew Struzan, and I think my relationship with Drew goes back to the early 2000s. Whenever he was working on the second Harry Potter poster, that was one of the earliest times that I was ever over there. But even earlier than that, I remember, I think the first thing I saw when I traveled over to his San Gabriel studio was a Three Stooges piece. And I kind of remember the piece. It's in one of his books. And all the time, every time that I had gone over to see him at his studio, because I lived about no less than a couple miles away when I was living in that area, starting in Pasadena and moving out west, farther east. I mean, lost my train of thought. So I have a bunch of pictures here that I'm going to be showing you. These are shot from the actual originals that Stu was nice enough to show me when we would travel to his storage unit. And his storage unit was very organized, just like Stu was. He didn't have his studio was kept very clean and organized, just like mine is. But there's a lot of guys that don't work like that. He and I are two people that did. Anyway, he died a couple days ago. Stu did. I call him Stu. And I was very lucky to have an opportunity back in March to visit him. I think it was March. Was it on? Okay, yeah, March, when I took a trip to LA with a friend of mine. And I wanted to see him one last time, Drew, before he got so bad that he couldn't stay alive anymore through the gout that he had and the disintegrating mental abilities that afflict way too many people in this world. So I was greeted. We pulled up to Drew's house, and I was greeted by Dylan, who was kind enough to hold out a bunch of brushes that Stu owned. And I had asked for some brushes. I got a pencil from Kirby, and I got a bunch of brushes from Stu, and I got one of his colored pencils too. And it was kind of a funny moment when Dylan said, "Are you going to take all of his colored pencils?" He said, "No." I said, "No, just one. I'm not greedy." And I could tell Dylan was, after all these several years of having to deal with practically an adult invalid based on his condition, that it was really hard on her. But Dylan is one of these ladies, his wife Dylan, where she's pretty indomitable, and she doesn't take crap from many people, especially doctors that would give her advice that she knew was wrong for Drew. So she was basically his entire caretaker for the entire time that he was going downhill. Now, the last time I saw Stu, before the moment that I just mentioned, where I flew up to see him one last time and say goodbye. That's a different story. I'll get to that in a second here. But The last official time that I saw him was was um, was March 2017, and I don't remember quite what I had a sense of in my head, but when I was there at his house, and Drew and Dylan pulled in, and the first thing I noticed was not good. Drew was looking not good. He was slurring his words. He was slow in the draw, and the qualities that were eventually going to destroy his brain with the dementia / Alzheimer's, whatever you want to call it, were already taking effect. And so the visit was a good visit. I'm glad I went. And the last time before that was probably a good 5 years before that. I don't know, but I came during I think November when I visited him on my own for the. I probably visited him at least 5 times after I moved. Now, when I was still living in the area, I probably saw him, several dozen times. He's always working in a studio, and that's where we'd always retire to. But the best time I had with him was when I flew up. He even had my name, the dude, on his little marquee there to remember who was coming. And that was the best time we ever had. It was just him and I sitting down in his studio and just catching up. And I had all these things I wanted to mention to him and get his comments on. And I always brought my work to show him. And Smickle spit. We need an energy drink here, and I can't seem to find one that works. They work for everyone else except for me. So this is going to be probably going to be pretty mellow delivery here. And the things we talked about were trials that he went through that didn't work out. And I tell you, I have a really hard time trying to understand that when people are in the presence of this guy, when people have hired this guy, I don't think they understand or comprehend very well at all that they're living in the presence of the greatest living illustrator. Nobody could touch him. None of his imitators could touch him because just by the way that they were imitators. They copied everything he did. They copied the airbrush. They colored. They copied the rendering with the Prisma, and detail for detail, thing for thing, they copied exactly how he did things. Now, I couldn't do that because, for one thing, I can't stand airbrushes. So I thought wanting to have a look like his because I admired it so much, but not carried to the degree these other people have. Which their work looks very good. Looks almost identical in a lot of ways. I guess why wouldn't it, right? You're copying everything pencil stroke by pencil stroke. But I didn't have an airbrush, so I would find a different way of doing the kind of look that he had, because I always found his look to be tremendously exciting. Every little thing he did, I never saw a piece of his that I thought was subpar. And here's a guy, his daily working life was, my impression was that he was under a lot of strain to please people. And he wanted to please them because to him, unlike people that think like me, that was his next job. And if he didn't impress, he wouldn't get the next job. Eventually, there came so many Struyson imitators in the field to compete with the look that he had. There had a couple of changes going about in the way people showed their proposals to the movie studios. And what that caused was not in the favor of the artists. And because so many people were using that style, um, they all wanted to outdo each other. So the comps that are just meant to be a facsimile of what the finish is going to look like got as tight as the finished poster. And this was every comp they turned in. Something they would turn as many as 14 comps in, comprehensive sketches, and they all had to be as detailed as the finished poster. No, I think that's just absurd, and it's all based on the fact that art directors are too stupid to even to look at the artwork and see what they were looking for and wanted in a poster. Well, they never did know what they wanted. What they wanted. They never knew that. So what comes about from that is all the comps that they would have to produce, and a lot of guys were pretty close to Streusen as far as how they rendered stuff, but they weren't the originators of this style. Drew Streusen was the originator of this acrylic tonal pencil drawing, and then highlights with Prismacolor pencil and paint over the top of that. So I've got a couple things I want to show you here. This one right here is a close-up shot from the Pirates of Penzance, and this happens to be Linda Ronstadt right here. And I don't know how close we can get on this. How close can we zoom in on these pictures right here?
I have it scanned, so it's.
So when I hold these up, they okay, good. If you look at the rendering on her face, it's I think if you put 1,000 Prismacolors and airbrush and everything else in front of an artist and said, go for your best look, and the look would be a deliberate try to copy the Streusen look, none of them would be able to look as accomplished as this piece right here. Drew's artistry was, I think I might have to categorize it as close to superhuman, because the kind of work he did for as long as he did it, I never saw him turn out something poor. I never saw him turn out anything but fantastic work. And I know the conditions he was working under at the time were doing everything to make him feel despondent, because the style was going out of style, and the computers had come in, and so the whole world that he trained under, the world of physical made art, that was what he did, and that's what I do, and will continue to do. Quick aside: one time I was writing letters back and forth to Strew when I was living down here in Arizona, and he was in the same place, San Gabriel. He mentioned that now that Strew was retiring, he said there's going to have to be somebody to take over the field. It's going to have to be a very strong guy, a big tough guy that can deal with these people in a way that others would cave into. And he was obviously referencing me. I was very flattered by that. And when somebody like him brings that up and kind of puts that on my shoulders, I'm ready. I'll do whatever I can. Someone ever calls me up to do a Strew-like poster, first thing I'm going to tell him is, well, he was many times better than anything I could ever do. And two, you're not going to be able to make tons of changes, arbitrary changes based on how you feel that day. If you woke up bad or didn't have your morning coffee in time, I don't want to hear about that crap. I'm not going to abide by those rules. Like, Drew would say, well, I had to get the next job, and that's why he would go through all those hoops with these guys. I'm not a hoop jumper. So our mentalities were a little different than that. If I was approached by somebody like the people Strew worked with, I have to lay down a bunch of demands. I could say they're requests, but they're actually demands, and they would follow under the ones I just kind of mentioned here. I'll need this amount of time, and obviously I'll give you my best work because there's no problem there. But I've had a lot of trouble adapting this kind of style right here, Strew style, for reasons that may or may not be interesting to you guys. Here's a shot of everyone's favorite cosmopolitan pinup, Burt Reynolds, and this was in the Burt Reynolds poster with Lonnie Anderson. One of his drag racing car things. And the thing about Strew is that his go-to commercial methodology was to go to a good clear photo of the actor and blow it up and trace it onto his illustration board. Well, let me tell you, if you think that's easy, talk to the hundreds of people that have tried doing things exactly the way he did it, with it, literally tracing the image down on the board and then painting it from there. You'll find, and I know they did, that it is tricky. It is if you think it's going to be something that is going to look as easy as the work appears to be by Strew himself, you will find out otherwise. I've tried this. The school I went to taught us about blowing up photos and tracing off the little tiles and all the little details and stuff. It never fit me. It just didn't feel right. There had to me there had to be other ways, and I was very determined to try them. And the Steve Rude way that made, obviously the Steve Rude way means it feels natural to me. There's just because your idol does things the way they do it, you'll make a mistake if you're trying to be too much like them because you're not them. This is a close-up shot of American Justice. Strew remembered this one really well right here. This is one of his early ones, and just expertly rendered as everything he ever did. What was interesting to me, if you look at the full picture, all this stuff in the background was a guy's face in oranges, and the Prismacolor used on the veneer of this guy's face is meant to be kind of a semi out of focus kind of a thing. So what he did was he worked very loosely with the Prismacolor to get this look down. Ugh, tired again. And the problem that I always try to communicate with Strew with the colored pencils is that because they're made of wax, there's only so many layers you can put over these things before they start to slide over each other, wax on wax. And it took me years. I mean, it's going on a decade now, and I'm still trying to figure this stuff out. So how pathetic is that? But I have produced some successes, and it's here's a close-up of one of the guys from American Justice. Rendered to perfection. But I've experimented with so many different ways of doing this, and all I can say is I believe that there is no finality here. There's never going to be a time when this is going to work out consistently every time I do it the way I want it to look. I've kind of realized that that might very well be an illusion. I can probably have some successes with this stuff, and I have, but I've had an equal amount of disasters trying to work with this methodology here, and I've had to develop my own ways of doing it, which is the way it should be. This shot right here is from one of the Ewoks things that Lucasfilm put out. And this is a close-up of some baby's head. And this one I'd never seen. When we were out in his storage locker, you know, he had everything lined up very neatly and very organized in alphabetical order, and listed on the outside were all the things, the specific names of the posters within the A to B section, or the A to C section. So I can't quite remember what the name of this movie was, but the fact that I hadn't seen it, and I said, can I pull this one out here? I got to see this one. Drew was always very gracious with giving me access to all these things, because otherwise I wouldn't have these pictures that I took with my camera here. This one goes back to 2019. Again, that's March 11th, 2019, that I took these. So that would have been on a different trip here. But it's hard to comprehend how the brilliance of this guy's abilities. You can study it, which I do all the time. You can be in awe of it, which is what makes people want to copy their style, someone's style in the first place. But this guy was. I know a lot of artists that back in the 50s and 60s, there was people that were encroaching on their mannerisms, their design sense, and one of them was Al Parker. And one of the things Al Parker mentioned about his imitators is that they'll never catch up to the guy that invented that style, because Al Parker kept pushing for different compositions and little things to envelope his composition to make it very clever. But that's one of the ones I took off this poster right here. It's a pretty big poster. It's got a lot of stuff going on. This one is also from American Justice. I picked this one because, how do you do something like this? You know, obviously this is rendered in a way that looks like there's distance and just a pure effect of light. What you see when a cop car pulls up, the first thing you see are the lights on top going off, and then the headlights, and there's glass and there's reflections, and so the look, that the sense of what that appears to be, he took it beyond a literal sense here and made it what it looks like when you're actually in the field looking at a car coming at you like this. And his rendering, as always, is just perfect. Superman. This is interesting right here. This was one of the ones I shot in person here at his studio. Once we retrieved some stuff from his storage locker. This was an oil paint when he was real big in oil. It's expertly done. One thing I noticed, I had a funny suspicion that Strew is in using a reference for this picture right here was probably something that Leyendecker did. So I think Strew adapted a Leyendecker face to work with Superman. And in fact, I did find out, is it on the back here or anything? No, it's not. But yeah, there was a Leyendecker thing that was similar to what Drew copied here, to get the look that he had. It's fine. It's well painted as always, as everything he did. But the Leyendecker was a little more unified, I think. I don't blame Strew for that. These were done at a time when he was in his 20s and still learning, which is hard to believe, because to me he came out full bore, the artist that he is. This was from the Jackie Gleason Mac Davis movie. This is a close-up of that, and hopefully Mr. Producer's given you an idea of what that full poster looks like. This is one of the ones I felt completely in love with when I first saw it. It's hard to not look at any of his works and not fall heels over. Just to just to look at what he's done here and be stunned by his ability. And funny, here's another funny thing. When I would go over to his house, I would bring, one of the latest things I'd done just to show him. And one of the things was a very loose copy that I did of an old lady figure from one of my illustrators in watercolor. And spit. Really need a wake-up thing for me here. I showed this to Drew, and Drew kind of got silent for a second. He says, he said, I can't work like that. I said, what do you mean? He says, I can't work that. I wish I could work that loose, but I can't. And what he was telling me was that the way he did things, with the extreme attention to detail, was the way that he worked and found natural within himself to do his rendering, his pictures. And I kind of had a hard time believing that. I mean, to me, the guy could do anything, literally anything. But, and I've heard this said about Rockwell too. Rockwell had incredible detail in his works. And he would say that he would do anything to tighten up, to stop from being getting tight in the beginning of the painting. Sometimes he would just take a roof shingle and just take paint and smear it across the thing, just to get him started in a looser direction. But irregardless of the things that we talked about as far as loose and tight, he never faltered. He never put out a single piece that I ever saw that was less than 100%. And the conditions he worked under during the time of the 80s, he started in the 70s. The first thing I ever saw was the same thing a lot of people remember, the Alice Cooper album cover for Welcome to My Nightmare. And Strew did that, and I liked that. I could tell it was a Leyendecker kind of a riff, but later on, he just improved exponentially. And he got to the point by the early 80s where he was indomitable. One of the thrills of going to movies in the 80s was walking into that theater and betting for sure that one of his posters would be up there advertising the movie. And I remember I would sit there for 5 minutes before the movie started and just stare at his work. And back then, you're so naive. I was in my early 20s back then when I saw that stuff. And I just had this very naive thought that, well, God, if I work hard enough, I can be as good as this guy here. Well, the truth is, I did work as hard as I could, but I would never be able to do as good as this guy. It was not in the cards, no matter how hard I tried. And I've gotten close. I've done some pretty good stuff, but the style that Strew enacted here in all his works is something that is in a different category altogether. I included this picture from the Hawk movie with Broderick and what's her name again, hon?
Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer. I'm including this because when I took a really super close-up of this face here, it was it looked pebbly. The surface looked pebbly, and I don't know how he got. In my mind, I don't know how he got the smoothness of the color pencil that went over the base layers of his drawing without it looking bumpy. But he did do it. It's right here to look at. But he never missed a beat. I never saw this guy miss a beat. The smallest details, which to me are just another way to say you had to work even harder and longer to get them like that. They were second nature to him, and they were not second nature to me. But I've talked to other people that talk about this this tightness that always imbues their work. And apparently, according to some artists, the going from tightness to looseness is a very difficult thing to achieve, because all the guys I know never really loosened up. Not that that's a requisite at all. I'm glad he stayed the way he did and was true to what he's felt inside to get the work that he got. Blowhard. This is a pencil piece right here. This is the incredibly detailed pencil work he did before he would go in with the airbrush and the color pencil and various additions of paint. But look at how detailed that is. I mean, that is his methodology was to go from a really detailed, full tonal thing in pencil. And let me tell you, man, when you see some of this pencil work in here, he must have spent hours just going round and round in circles and getting everything just right. And if you think that's easy, it's not. It's not easy because it's a massive amount of time that you have to put in to render things in pencil in the way that you're looking at here. The dense black areas, I mean, he must have went through how many pencils I can't even imagine. So we're going to put this aside for right now. I'm going to show you some more of the originals that I saw at his place. This is the one. This is one that I saw the last time. No, it was the second to last time that I saw him. And this was on Canson paper, you know, the thin pastel kind of paper. And God, I mean, the way this guy does stuff, the way he combines Art Deco and Art Nouveau, and all these periods of art that he incorporates in. He just was a very clever man. He knew everything. You know, Guillermo once said that he knew every trick in the book. Drew did. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's true. There's nothing I've never seen an example of his work that couldn't show me, with all this diversity, that there's anything he could not do. And the work was just stunningly beautiful, all of it. And this is the one I took to. I kind of hinted that I'd like to grab this from him right here, but never made the offer, so I never got it. But I just think this one is so romantic and pretty. This other stuff in here does not apply. This one right here was an example of his genius of how he could invent prisms of light on faces here. It looks like Nancy Allen as the girl there. But the whole concept of using a spectrum of different colored lights around a person's face, which is a beautiful thing, of course. Obviously, it looks like an ET thing for sure. But if you look close at close-ups here, you might be surprised at how loose some of this is right here. From this version, it looks extremely tight, but there's actually a lot of because of reduction, there's a lot of really free-form slashing of the color pencil going on there, and that obviously works with my kind of temperament and personality. So I'm trying to develop a method that works with the way things want to come out of me. That feels natural, but for all the guys that try his style, and some of them really have nailed it pretty close, I wanted to be me with Streusen, a little Streusen thrown into the mix. When you like somebody's work that much, you obviously want to get look closely and know how he does things. had a dream about Stroud not too long ago. It was a dream so vivid. A lot of my dreams at the age of my late 60s now, the clarity of the so-called dream world is as real as this one here, and it's just stunning to wake up and realize it was a dream, because when you were dreaming, it was as much of a reality as anything else. My dreams have been doing that lately. They're getting so specific of people that I don't know. But when you're dreaming in the dream world, it is 100% real. I'm meeting all these people. I'm touching all these things. The walls where I'm bicycling down the cobbled roads in Italy or something, and I'm touching the walls, and the craziest part about these dreams is that everyone's made up. But made up people in the dreams that I have are as real as anyone I talk to in real life. It's very strange. The Harry Potter poster. Let's find that one here. Where is the Harry Potter poster?
In the book.
In the book? Okay, so you just have to hold it up yourself.
Yeah.
Let me know when you have it up.
I had that last picture ready to go, so hold on.
Okay.
All right, it's up.
This cover, I'm going to tell you the stories of the work when I visited his studio he was working on, because he always had something going on. I think the very first thing on his drawing board was a Three Stooges piece. I'm almost positive. And he was like, 3/4 done with that. And when I look back and think of what I wanted, if I could have had it, was to be locked in that studio and just stare at those pieces all night. So enamored I was with the brilliance of his work. And then I really could have studied it. But when you're in those situations where you're only there for a couple hours and then you gotta head off, you can't really do that. Eventually, I reached the subject with Stu. I said, "There's one thing that I haven't done with you that I would like to do more than anything else, and this would be my dream scenario, which is I would set up next to you in your studio and watch you work. I would do something as well with paint or whatever I had available." But I would be there to learn from him, just to hang over his shoulder and literally watch how he does everything. Some of it would have been boring because the whole nature of paint itself is not too exciting. But but when he'd get into certain moments, I would have given anything to see that. It didn't happen because of his declining health. I think if his health hadn't been declining, I'm almost positive I could have pulled it off. We got along so well. There's so many people Stu was pretty indifferent about. But I was not one of them, and I don't really know why. But it's how lucky can you get? Greatest artists in the world actually liking your company and hanging around with. My style was different from everyone else's. Half the time I would just drive up to his home and just invite myself in. Well, yeah, in this world, how many people do that? Well, the world was a little different back then, and I just drive up and walk in his driveway and wave, and we go out to the studio and do what artists do. We talk about everything. God, I'm getting so tired right now. You guys never came through with one of my health drinks. The one that gives me a lot of energy. I don't have that right now. So I'm trying to slog through this whole thing, this very sensitive thing about me having the world having lost the greatest living illustrator, because that's what he was. maybe I'll do a part 2 next time if I give myself a shot of adrenaline, and then I'll be awake enough to really concentrate on what. So yeah, this should probably be a 2-parter. There's so much to go over with Stru. All the moments I had with him when I visited him, and he would show me how to do little things, in the way of his methodology, which was little more than acrylic paint, in underdrawing, and Prisma to bring out, presumably to bring out the lighter parts. But in fact, you go back and forth on all the stuff until you render it as perfectly as Stru did, so that you get a very photorealistic style. But at the same time, you know it's a poster. It's almost like a movie, like a circus poster. It's got all the excitement you could ever want. And he never, I can see that. Was this a dream? I think this was a dream. Stru was running around my house, and he was going really fast, like any canine would do. And boy, it's also amazing how few people know about his work. Basically, I don't care who it is. I will walk up to anyone, even well-known artists, and most of them they know the name because they're generally living in the same area as Stru. But I show these things. I mentioned Drew's name to random people at the gym, supermarket, whatever. I said, have you heard of the name? And no, not a one had ever known his name. Even back then, when he was the hottest thing on earth, I don't think people knew his name. So I would show him the work that Stru did, and of course he would immediately recognize it from the mainstays, which you all know about by now, and chat with him a little bit. And the thing we just saw disappearing there, I probably saw this to my mind. It was described to me of what he goes through when he's around these entities in his backyard, which I believe we're getting quite out of hand here for his kids, and that was Will Smith, that he'd done a lot of posters for Stru had done a lot of posters for Will Smith movies, and I guess the white guy supplied these white men with rifles and things like that they didn't have. And I think the Indians were smart enough or conniving enough to use this as a way they could take a man. So if you look up there, that's very close literal interpretation. So we're going to wrap it up for today. I showed you some of the originals, which were always exciting. I had these originals by getting access to the files in his storage unit, and I would pick them out one by one and freak out, and secretly hoping he'd just say, "Yeah, take it." But he wasn't quite like that. But my memories of my times with him, I don't know what to say about that. They're timeless, and when you're engaging in a superior conversation with somebody, it stays with you the rest of your life. What's that animal doing over there? Is she biting some of my artwork flame? No, okay. Give her a bone. So I think we'll do a part 2 next week when I'm a little more together here, because there's a lot more to talk about with my friend Stru. and everything he went through. I was so flattered that he would learn, that he felt so safe around me to confide to me with things that I just don't think he did with many other people. But Drew Struzan, genius, is now taking his leave from this earth. Going by the pain, the amount of pain that he was enduring weeks before he died, I was probably one of the last people to ever see him, which is crazy. So look up Drew's work on the internet and anywhere else you can find it, and just know that this guy was the greatest living illustrator, for a good reason, and there was nobody that could touch him, especially the imitators of his work. And during the year 1966 was the year that everything was still being done in house at Hanna-Barbera, with Space Ghost and Dino Boy and Frankenstein Jr. and all those characters, and that work back then was superior, even when it was taken away from us. But it would come back from some studio, I guess, and there was no difference in quality, none at all. Dick. So we're going to wrap it up before I start sawing logs completely here. I hope that was hope that was helpful. This is for sure something I wanted to do for this week. And even though I'm fading fast, I'm glad I got to at least make a connection with you guys of the importance of his art, the person he was. He was uncompromising with his work. There are so many times when he could have just sloughed off for a variety of really good reasons, but no, he kept upping his game instead of lowering it, and that's the incredible thing about Drew Struzan. So we'll see you next week for part 2. I'm going to go rest, and glad you tuned in. You guys take care.